Peace, family. Last but certainly not least, the finale of this week's lecture, thinking about Black women and self-discovery and healing in media. The one and only Lemonade. Y'all, this film changed my life and I love it so much. And I love having the opportunity to teach this film to my students. Now, I know some people are Beyonce stans. I am a Lemonade stan, okay? I love this project. And for those of you who have not seen it, it's gonna be a lot of spoilers in this lecture. So if you have not yet watched Lemonade, pause this video right here, go ahead and watch the film and then come back here. All right, family, because I want to make sure that y'all get the full experience and then come back here and we gonna break it down. All right, and for those of you who have watched it, let's dive in. So what is Lemonade about? This powerful piece of art, y'all, is so layered and so textured, and there's so many themes. But I want to read here from Beyonce Reborn, which is on y'all syllabus this week. And I want to just read a little bit of it for us to have a better sense of how we're going to be thinking about Lemonade in our class. So the author starts off, on the surface, Lemonade tells the story of a woman coping with her husband's infidelity, getting cheated on, right? It is organized into 11 chapters that poetically and theatrically stage how she works through the ordeal. Intuition, denial, anger, apathy, emptiness, accountability, reformation, forgiveness, resurrection, hope, and redemption. The titles allude to the reconciliation between the husband and the wife. Less obvious, this is where we gonna dive in, y'all. Less obvious is the soul searching that takes place within the wife to reach this happy conclusion. Before the wife can reconcile with her husband, she gotta first reconcile with herself, y'all. That's what we are going to be thinking about today. How do we see this Black woman on screen reconciling with herself in her process of self-discovery and healing? What is outwardly recognized as a broken heart is actually a what? Shattering of the self, y'all. So I talked in the last few videos about my homegirl Valencia and everything sheds, right? All the ways that we have to let go and shed, but we also have to sometimes shatter, right? So we see Beyonce's shattering of herself. What did I say too earlier? Sometimes we gotta unravel to put ourselves back together anew. Sometimes we gotta get lost to get found. Sometimes we gotta fall apart. And so this shattering of herself is like everything I ever known. It's shattering. And it's a kind of spiritual death, right? It's deep. This reading is deep and Lemonade is deep. And a lot of times folks don't always acknowledge or realize the depths of the film. And I appreciate this article so much because what she's inviting us into is this self-discovery and healing process that we are watching and witnessing on screen as we study Lemonade as an art form, as an art piece, and as a media opportunity for Black women to be more fully nuanced and complex on screen. She says, when Beyonce speaks the line, "So what are you going to say at my funeral now that you've killed me?" She is acknowledging that the woman's identity is bound to her marriage. Hence, when the marriage breaks, so does she. And what a powerful process, y'all. Like I talked about, sometimes we have to go through that darkness in order to come out into the light. And it's necessary. So that spiritual death was necessary for her to come into the fullest version of herself, right? That when her identity is bound to a man, bound to her marriage, bound to her husband, She is not in the full truth of herself and her identity as a Black woman. We talked before about healing from patriarchy, right? And so what does it mean when we give ourselves permission to be our full whole selves unapologetically and to know ourselves outside the realm of being the wife, outside the realm of who we are in comparison to our partner, to this husband that we see, right, within this film? Who is she if not a wife? Ironically, the wife must die in order for the woman to reclaim her individual identity. Who, y'all? I got married a year ago, and when I tell you this hit, I'ma just say, in my own healing journey, it's required me to detach not from my husband, not from my partner, not from our marriage, but from society's expectations of how a Black woman is supposed to be a wife. And when I allow myself to release those expectations, I lean into any relationship, and particularly my marriage, right? Centered and grounded in my own truth and my own identity and my own healing, which is very different from me trying to be the wife that society told me to be, that frankly, my husband ain't even expect me to be anyway, right? And so my healing journey, again, when we talked about shedding, right? Shedding, shattering, releasing, letting go, I had to go through a process of letting go of what was placed onto me as a Black woman and reclaiming my own individual identity, right? And so that's what we are witnessing on screen. This nuanced opportunity, right? This multifaceted, complex, heavy, deep, emotional, intense, coming into self-discovery, right? Coming into individual identity and healing. So the author goes on to say, to find herself, the woman must go on a spiritual journey. We're going to get into spirituality more in depth next week, but we're going to start talking about the relationship between selfhood and spirituality, how we see Black women in media inviting ourselves into self-healing in relation to sisterhood, like we've talked about, but also in relation to spirituality. She must tap into the supernatural and experience death, seeking, and rebirth in order to rediscover her true self. If this ain't a whole word, I feel as though this is a scripture. I love this article so much. I can't wait for y'all to read it. And, you know, what I love about it is that it's centering the Black woman's healing journey. It's not centering the marriage. It's not centering the man. It's not centering the cheating, right? Because a lot of times when we talk about Lemonade, that's what folks center or talk about. It's centering the Black woman and her healing journey, her process of self-discovery and reclamation, right? And how spirituality played a key role in that. So that is what Lemonade is about in reference to this class. That is how we are engaging Lemonade as a text, as a media piece that invites Black women more into our fullness and more into our healing. So we could read this film a lot of different ways, right? There's the visuals, there's the poems. We're going to really focus on the words of these poems and really analyze and ground down into what are we learning, right? Not just about Beyonce. And we can even look at Beyonce as a figure, right? That this is a Black woman on her healing journey who's inviting us into a piece of her healing journey. And that healing journey is co-curated, right, by other Black women, poets and visual artists. And so there's this collective sisterhood process of even putting this piece together. But we're really going to think about self-discovery through the spiritual journey. We're going to think about how Beyonce is grappling and processing with intergenerational trauma and healing, how she's processing her relationship to her identity as a woman, what those expectations were. Again, y'all, I just presented on my piece, right? Healing at home. She talks about in Lemonade, she tried to make a home of you, a home out of a man, right? And what we see in Healing at Home is that I can make a home of me. I get to make a home of me, right? My body can be my home. My tiny studio apartment, right? I can make a home of that space. And as I make a home of me, I make my home feel safe enough for me to do my healing, right? And so we see that when we invite ourselves to make a home of ourselves, we are able to lean into this process of self-discovery that's not dictated by or contingent upon or relying on somebody else, whether it be a husband, a wife, a partner, right? A loved one, that we can make a home of ourselves. And she talks about submitting to this man, and she's asking him for truth. Are you cheating on me? I need to know. And she's wanting to do all these things, all these ways that women have been taught to submit. And she wants to know, are you cheating on me? And then she jumps into the water, right? The submission is not bringing the truth, but the water will. And what the water, soon as we see her jump into this water, right? The water brings a truth about herself, right? She thinks that this is about this marriage and this relationship and this infidelity, but it's an invitation. Again, y'all, that darkness, them ugly feelings is an invitation into our own self-discovery. And so her being with the water invites her into truth. And that man ain't gonna catch you, but the river will, right? There's a way that even when she sings, I pray you catch me, right? She's praying that this man is going to catch her, but what she comes to know and find and discover is that the water is going to catch her, right? That's that spiritual healing, that spiritual journey, that the river will catch her. And so I want to dive into this quote, y'all, when she really talks about in what ways she was engaging this submission. I tried to change. Now, again, we got to change and grow, but this type of change she's talking about is change for you, which is different from change for me. You get what I'm saying? That shedding, that shattering, that's a spiritual growth, a healing change, not be someone other than me for a man, but become the best version of me for myself. Right? So when she's saying, I tried to change, she's referring to a change that centered his needs and minimized her truth. Closed my mouth more, got silent, right? Silenced her truth. Tried to be softer, prettier, less awake. Fasted for 60 days, wore white, abstained from mirrors. Y'all just seen me talking about how healing my mirror work process has been for me, right? So if we don't want to see ourselves, we're hiding from ourselves, right? So this is all a process of submission that was not centering her own healing. Abstained from sex, slowly did not speak another word. In that time, my hair, I grew past my ankles. I slept on a mat on the floor. I swallowed a sword. I levitated, went to the basement, confessed my sins, and was baptized in the river. I got on my knees and I said, amen. And I said, I mean. So there's all these ways that she's engaging in this process of trying to change herself for him. And she realizes that's not going to bring her healing. And then she transitions into changing for herself, going on a process, right? She says, I whipped my own back and asked for dominion at your feet. I threw myself into a volcano. I drank the blood and drank the wine. I sat alone and begged and bent at the waist for God. I crossed myself and thought I saw the devil. I grew thick in skin on my feet. I bathed in bleach and plugged my menses with pages from the holy book, but still inside me, coiled deep, was the need to know, are you cheating on me? All these changes that she's putting herself through for the answer to the question, when really it's an invitation into her own self-discovery, right? And so in a lot of ways, we can look at Beyonce's self-discovery process Also as an opportunity to think about Black women and in sisterhood, all that we carry from the exterior world and in the interiors of our own homes, right? That in her self-discovery journey, we are invited into our own relationship to Black womanhood, healing, and self-discovery. When she quotes Malcolm X, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And so if we understand that, right, the histories and the lineages of Black women experiencing harm and trauma, then we can understand how intergenerational trauma happens, how trauma gets passed down from a mother to a daughter, from a grandmother, right, from a great grandmother, all the ways that trauma gets passed down. She says, you desperately want to look like her. You look nothing like your mother. You look everything like your mother. You go to the bathroom to apply your mother's lipstick. You wear it like she wears disappointment on her face, right? So she's speaking here to what gets passed down. I want to be so much like my mom, but then I don't want to be because there's trauma that my mother has passed down to me. There's disappointment, there's despair. I don't want that too. I don't want that intergenerational trauma to get passed down to me in my own healing journey, right? She says, Mother dearest, let me inherit the earth. Teach me how to make him beg. Let me make up for the years he made you wait. Did he bend to your reflection? Did he make you forget your own name? Again, y'all, changing for him, very different from changing for me, right? When I'm changing for me, I'm rediscovering my own name. Changing for him, I'm shrinking. I'm forgetting my own name. Again, we talked about healing from patriarchy, right? This is so central to this piece here. Did he convince you that he was a God? Asking him to praise you over praising what has felt most spiritually true for you about who your God is in your own life. Am I talking about your husband or your father? So she's pointing to this process of patriarchal harm, patriarchal violence that has occurred across each generation and where that leaves her now in her own healing journey. Then she says, you remind me of my father, a magician, able to exist in two places at once in the tradition of men in my blood. You come home at 3 a.m. and lie to me. What are you hiding? The past and the future merge to meet us here. What luck. What a curse, right? So we see all the ways that the intergenerational trauma is impacting the current moment, and we are invited into intergenerational healing, y'all. She says, if we are going to heal, let it be glorious. 1,000 girls raise their arms. Do you remember being born? Are you thankful for the hips that cracked? The deep velvet of your mother and her mother and her mother, there is a curse that will be broken. When we do our healing, y'all, when we do our healing, we break curses. I talked earlier in this lecture about the urgency of healing. Our healing is urgent. Our healing is so urgent because we break curses. We heal for our mothers and the mothers before them and the mothers before them. Right? We allow ourselves to be in our truth. We allow ourselves to discover ourselves, and we free up all the women before us to lean deeper into their own processes of healing and self-discovery. And even though the trauma got passed down, right? It wasn't just the trauma, y'all. It was the healing too. Our grandmothers knew their own healing. It may look very different from ours, right? But there was healing happening, and that got passed down. The ways that they survived. She says, grandmother, the alchemist, you spun gold out of this hard life, conjured beauty from the things left behind, found healing where it did not live. discovered the antidote in your own kit, broke the curse with your own two hands. You passed these instructions down to your daughter, who then passed it down to her daughter. So she's honoring all the ways that the Black women who have come before us passed healing down, and acknowledging that now we still have to do some healing that they weren't able to do, so that when we pass it down to the next generation, we can be a little bit more healthier, a little bit more whole, a little bit more true. We can be a little bit healthier for the next generation. And so I want us to conclude. We're going to go here next week on diving more into spirituality. We're going to continue to talk about Lemonade in relation to spirituality, but I really want us to honor and affirm all the ways that this film is about self-discovery and healing. And what healing means, right, is being in sisterhood, being in our spirituality, being honest about the past, about the traumas that got passed down and the healing that got passed down, right? Being able to acknowledge and honor and recognize that sometimes we have to fall apart to come back together. Sometimes we have to shatter. Sometimes we have to experience a death of certain parts of ourselves, a shedding of certain parts of ourselves in order to experience our wholeness. And so it's my hope that as y'all are watching these lectures, y'all are thinking and processing about your own healing journey and about new ways and modes of healing that might serve you in your process. I appreciate y'all so much. So grateful to be sharing this virtual space with y'all. And I look forward to checking in next week, y'all. Peace, family. Take good care of yourselves.